Yeah, see, like, remember when they were racing to Mount Rushmore? Where was this? Yeah, what? Max? God, this is brutal. Whoever said Ben doesn't kill is lying. No Omnitrix. Who could it be?
You still haven't figured it out?
And this is a great touch. Hey everyone, Kuro the Artist here, and welcome back to another Ben 10 breakdown. Today, we'll be taking a look at the start of Season 2 and how the series becomes more linear. Season 1, while it had an arc, was more or less episodic, whereas this season, right off the bat from the first scene in its premiere, tells you that this show wants to take its storytelling to the next level. If this is your first breakdown and you'd like to know how I assign my ratings, info on my ranking system along with a playlist full of all the previous breakdowns are in the description. But by all means, stick around, I'm sure you'll enjoy this video anyways. Nothing left to introduce, but before we begin, let's take a look at last week's poll. So in celebration of the completion of Vilgax's first arc, I asked the viewers, what's your favorite version of Vilgax? While it's no surprise that the Cyborg won, Alien Force's Warlord take had a surprising amount of votes to me, and there were many passionate comments defending their decision. I personally have a negative bias against him, because he's such a strong contrast from his previous version, and it was everything about the classic version that made me like Vilgax in the first place. And since now there's evidence that Alien Force's third season, which debuted the version of Warlord Vilgax, had a lot of, let's say, colorful production behind the scenes, which I will elaborate on once I get to those episodes. It's hard for me to shake that bias knowing that the character I dislike so much wasn't even what they originally wanted to do. But I do want to thank you all for leaving these comments and sharing your opinions, and opening me up to your perspective on why you like Warlord Vilgax so much. These types of discussions are great and make the community more connected. So even if you disagree with the majority, it's good to stand your ground and stay true to your interests. That's the only update I have for today, so let's jump right into those breakdowns. After a 2-month break from the Season 1 finale, Season 2 premieres May 29th, 2006 to a week long of new episodes. Starting with Truth. Written by Marty Eisenberg, it's both in title and in concept sort of the mirror episode to Secrets, which was also written by Eisenberg. And it begins with Max finally telling the kids about his secret life working with the plumbers. Phil, Max's old partner, is still active in the area and invites the Tennyson family to help his mission to reignite the organization. But Phil has malicious plans to stage these alien attacks by secretly releasing the aliens just to have people pay him to recapture them.
Security breach. Red alert.
So Vilgax's ship is using some sort of tractor beam to steal all of these nukes. This is a really cool tractor beam effect, but with Vilgax's expansive arsenal, I don't see why he'd need to steal nukes. Maybe this is before he got the robots? Nope, there's the robots. So this is your first subtle hint that it's a flashback, that Vilgax looks like his pre-cybernetic self. Because this episode just kind of drops you into the action, doesn't even give you a timestamp or anything. So right now you're kind of passively under the impression this is taking place in present day. Oh, even past Vilgax was super tough.
You're going down.
And this is the introduction to the plumbers, which progressively become more complicated as each series goes on. But here they're sort of like the underground secret society of alien fighters, Men in Black style, special group. I don't know, there's a lot of mystery to the classic series plumbers. And I really dig it. I really dig the police officer style they use in Alien Force going forward, but this is also a really interesting take on it. It would have been nice if there was some type of in-universe transition between the two styles of plumbers. Which Omniverse kind of did, but nonetheless.
Never said I would, kid.
Ooh, that's a great way for the weapons to come out. Happens really quickly too, in like 2 frames. You ever seen like robot suits or even the Omnitrix itself? When the dial pops up, where does the cylinder that extends outward normally stored in the arm? Whereas this design right here kind of solves the problem by making the device pop out of the brim of the wrist. It even shows like there's a hole right here for this contraption to fold into, and right here. So it makes a believable emphasis that this could be a practical design for a laser glove. So Max straps him to a nuke and fires him into his own ship. Yeah, I would believe Vilgax was dead after that too.
sending Vilgax out with a bang.
Oh yeah, and the final reveal that it was Max. Also, I don't know if this deserves to be talked about or not, but if this whole ship blows up, does Vilgax repair his ship or does he get a new one? So with the way you see Mount Rushmore in the background, you can guarantee that this takes place directly after the season 1 finale. Wow, Max ain't looking at the road. What a surprise.
We called ourselves the Plumbers.
Here we go. Heavy lore. These were the first designs that Tom Perkins ever did for the series. At least I'm pretty sure, because I know he started around season 2, and this is definitely Perkins's work. So I believe, yeah, this is the first time we ever see it. Also, let's listen to that quote again real quickly.
Extraterrestrial, extrasensory, extraordinary.
So see how he goes on to specify that it's more than extraterrestrial? There's your Secret Saturdays connection. Boom, solved.
I'm a plumber in training.
You have no idea.
You always told us we could tell you anything, Grandpa. Guess you didn't feel the same.
Now, ironically, back in the day, I actually did agree with Grandpa that keeping it a secret was a good idea, and Gwen was being a little insensitive. But now that I'm rewatching the whole season, like, yeah, there was many times that if Grandpa just told them flat out, it would have greatly benefited the situation. But honestly, the second Ben got the watch, I feel like Max should have told him. It was good for us as the audience. It built a mystery in the first season. It was cool to put together all the clues and then see it pay off in the finale. So from an entertaining standpoint, yeah, it makes sense. But in universe, I can't really see a reason why Max would continue to keep it a secret when it's just flat out obvious aliens exist to them.
You're just jealous because you're not part of the family business.
Well, maybe if she didn't smash those charms.
Time to accelerate.
First transformation of the season is a wrong one. And the Havoc Beasts. Those come back a lot too. So another change of opinion from my initial viewing. I used to think it was pretty ridiculous that the same day Max finally reveals his past about being a plumber and his old partner Phil is also the same one that they coincidentally run into him again. But you have to think they are still in the Mount Rushmore area, which has the plumber base with all of the necessary technology. And if Phil is still trying to access the tools that he needs to do these scams, then like, yeah, of course Phil is still around, especially when they're both responding to a very specific type of emergency involving a creature. Honestly, if this took place anywhere else, then yeah, it would be a crazy coincidence.
Just sit tight, fish stick.
Actually, that's Ripjaws. Fish stick is a commission I got, which you can check out on the 5YL wiki.
I'm retired, and so are the Plumbers.
Well...
Wow, cool watch. Looks so familiar.
That's also kind of evidence that Phil knows a lot more than he should, if he was being as honest as he said he would. Because Max just said he only knew of the Omnitrix in rumors. But Phil apparently knows the Omnitrix well enough to recognize what it looks like.
Less people who know, the better.
Guess that's your answer to everything, isn't it, Grandpa?
Alright, now she's being a little bit forward.
The past.
Max, if you're out.
Oh wow, a conveniently timed broadcast. You know, I really enjoy these designs for Vulpamancers, but I still feel like I very much prefer Wild Mutt with lips.
Wild Mutts! Maybe I can talk with them!
That's some pretty smart thinking. Good for you, Ben. That's a very round dial. This shot here actually offers us a lot of comparisons between the adult and adolescent Vulpamancers. Their claws are sharper. It's kind of like their lips peel back a little bit. Their mouths almost look like a claw or a fist, and they're very lizard-like. He does that same move in Race Against Time. You know, the more I think of it, it was pretty clever of Phil to stage this whole scenario where there's a lot of meat hanging around so he could just say, oh, well, the Vulpamancers must have smelled this large amount of carcass. He's covering his tracks pretty well. The downfall is the fact that Max knows Phil really well, but it's no wonder Phil's been able to keep up these scams for years. The shape of Phil's head is like changing every time he moves. Oh yeah, that's a big jump. A lot of the animation in this episode is like this.
Hang on.
And Gwen's dead.
Looking for this?
The Null Void Projector.
Ah yes, the first mention of the Null Void.
To release the ones we caught back in the old days.
Then get some hotel manager or mayor or whoever to pay me to catch it.
Yeah, it's happening here again. It's mostly just with Phil, but his face is like morphing a bit too much off model too frequently.
Too bad, we could have made quite a team again.
You know, Phil, if you really wanted this to work, you should have just shoved Max in the Null Void. Oh, it's a good thing he got hit with that board before he changed back.
And who says crime doesn't pay?
Yes, I too sit down and evilishly talk to myself. Yeah, see, like, remember when they were racing the Mount Rushmore? Where was this? Like, this idea had to have been thought of. This is only the episode directly after, and it's written by the same guy who wrote the Mount Rushmore episode. I don't know, it could have just been a season 2 thing, but, you know, you can't just give Max rocket boosters in the RV and not think of all the times it would have come in handy. Wow, a lot of very regular creatures debut in this episode.
4 arms of muscle.
Oh, that's 2. 2 this episode. Wow, just a mirror? Now, I get that this may solve the problem temporarily, but I feel like Max should have gone back for Phil to have him properly arrested. Like, Max is consciously letting Phil just suffer in the null void. And as bad as Phil was, like, does he really deserve death?
What about Phil?
I think there's some things about this job we're better off not knowing.
Oh, come on, Max. You're gonna let him die? Well, I know he doesn't die, but like, so far in the series, yeah, he's sentencing Phil to death. Well, there you have it for what's basically Secrets Part 2. The plot of this one was pretty average, but I think further building off of the mysteries that were revealed in the season finale, in addition to Phil being a pretty interesting character, I'd say that this episode is worthy of a 4. Some things could have used some tightening up, but pretty much everything is better with an additional polish, so it's not too much of a fault to strike it any lower than a 4. But we're gonna take a step lower in the characterization and give it a 3. Ben and Phil were written very well. While I did find Gwen a little insensitive to Max in the beginning, she was the one that figured out Phil might not be what he seems, even without Max telling her. And she was also the one brave enough to sneak into Phil's car, so you gotta give her props. Max, just because I don't agree with his actions doesn't mean that he's written bad. I guess when you're him and you're a plumber and you've seen so much, maybe yeah, you would feel compelled to keep stuff a secret. But what I really disagree with is Max knowingly letting Phil suffer in the null void. He's never done anything to support he would do such a cruel decision, and I didn't really think too much about that until I started doing this breakdown, so it was never like a big flaw or problem I've had with the show, but it is worth pointing out now. Visuals can tie with characterization for a 3. It was great to have Tom Perkins on board, and we saw a lot of really good creature designs, a lot which come back continuously in the series, but the animation itself was noticeably not as well produced as the previous season finale. I get that the last episode was a season finale, that's where they put all that work into it, so it's not too fair of a comparison, but as a viewer, you can still see a lot of things that could have been improved, and I think since Phil was a very new character, that's why he was the one who stuck out the most as constantly going off model. Ripjaws was a little iffy too, but again, the creature designs were great, and it was enjoyable to see the new features of the Rust Bucket. Importance, I feel like it deserves a solid 5, not just because of the creatures coming back, but this introduces a lot of very important elements that continue throughout the series and even the franchise. We get our first look at the plumbers, the history Max had with Vilgax, a little bit of information on the null void, and while this stuff does get retouched upon in later episodes to catch you up to speed, I feel like it's still very beneficial to watch this episode anyways to really hammer in those points. Plus, seeing the actual characters react to the introduction of these things too can help you understand how they think and feel about things in the later episodes where they're more relevant. But with all of that being said, I'm gonna have to give this episode a 2 in entertainment. Sorta like Lucky Girl, it's a really big lore dump, but that's kind of all it is. You see this episode once and let the surprises hype you up, and even though it's got a pretty interesting plot, I guess I'm just struggling to explain why I just don't feel so intrigued when I'm watching it. I guess this episode just didn't hit it with me. Like, I don't think I would put this episode on just for fun. Well, maybe, if I was like in a, I want to see something specific with it. Like, I want to re-experience the introduction of Phil and stuff. But yeah, it just wasn't as entertaining as a lot of the other ones. That brings us to a total of 17 out of 25. I think that's our first 17. We still got more episodes to look at, so let's just keep the ball rolling. Kevin Hops returns for his second and final episode to write The Big Tick, first premiering May 30th, 2006. Shortly after unlocking his first additional transformation, Cannonbolt, Ben and the gang witness a giant tick that lands on Earth. Followed by a small cult that religiously worships the tick, the giant creature plans to root itself into the Earth and destroy it. These are some new background textures, right? Have we seen this texture applied to something in the series so far? Also, the trees. This episode just looks a little bit different.
Astronomers at Mount Hamilton have caught a glimpse of a small...
Alright, I really regret not doing a convenient radio broadcast counter. Like, maybe I should add it now, but it's happened so much, I don't even remember which episodes. Like, I can think of maybe 4, but I mean, the fact this has happened 4 times already, I might even say like 7 or 8, honestly. Like, they've really been using these a lot.
Figured I'd go accelerate and hit that burger place in Casper. Pick up a double cheeseburger with pickles.
We can live right off the land.
Max didn't pack any food?
Full of protein.
Maybe I can help. I'll take my burger with chili.
Okay, so they're both obviously touching the watch in pretty specific ways. I think Cannonbolt got unlocked because they accidentally entered Cannonbolt's code. I used to think it was an accident and it was just the Omnitrix not working right. But I guess it depends on if the entering the code to unlock aliens idea was thought of yet. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Here he is. To go from this shot to this shot, I feel like Gwen and Grandpa have to be stepping on him right now. No, I guess they just made him really small. Cause Cannonbolt's big, like he's able to wrap Max and Gwen inside of him.
I can't believe I'm a new hero.
One more. Who knows?
Whoa, he raises his eyebrow and his whole eye jumps up.
There could be 100 more.
And then when he lowers, they split.
So what do you think he does?
I like seeing Ben try to figure out his alien powers.
Kinetic blasts? This alien's got a code.
Cannonbolt's power revealed. Let's take a look at how he curls in the ball. Because I feel like it always looks a little bit different every time. So with this being the introductory one, I'm sure they put the most effort into the logistics of it. Yeah, so it looks like they definitely grow in shape. Like it's not a constant armor. It looks like the back shell stretches around and then splits off to become the side spheres, and his shoulder forehead things merge together, and then the outer shell grows all around it. Yeah, this is a very proficient way to do it. It looks good both forwards and in reverse. It's a shame we lose this consistency. Like, I think at one point in Ultimate Alien, Cannonbolt literally just morphs out of the shell. Does he keep the same when he unfolds? Sorta. It's being treated like the back shells just kind of wrap around over it. But in regular motion, it looks good. I'm just picking it apart. Ooh, the triangles are touching. It's one of my biggest pet peeves when drawing the Omnitrix. Never make the triangles touch. Making him very clumsy on his feet is a good power balance. So when he does it here, he rolls forward, but when he unfolds, he's on his back. Almost as if he was like backing up. Yeah, now it gets sloppier every time it happens. In fact, these rocks land directly on Cannonbolt as if he's flat ground. Hold on. Yeah, so there was this Cannonbolt product where its arms and legs would fall off and it would turn into a ball. That's what this frame reminds me of. All right, enough getting sidetracked. I forgot it was so pink.
Rejoice in all his glorious glory.
Cusco's poison. I always loved those hoverboard designs. It's simple, but it's very satisfying. The floating orb doesn't go out of focus when the attention is drawn to Max.
And an Iberian Palorota.
A great one purified your planet last week.
Now that's a bit of a coincidence. That fact can be used to debate whether or not Gwen and Ben entered a code, or perhaps the Tick's presence really did have something to do with Ben unlocking Cannonbolt, but we never find out for sure.
He's speaking to me.
I don't hear anything.
Only I speak his language.
He's like an alien televangelist.
Let me show you.
Not the audio-visual thing again.
Yeah, they're literally just like a space religious cult. This is pretty great to have characters like these on the show.
The deep burrowing of the appendages, ingesting it. Your oceans will dry up.
Oh, they'll do more than that if you blow up the planet. Like, none of this would even be here.
It will be the end of the world as you know it.
Frog Leap Studios does a great cover of that song.
The end of the world as we know it, when I'll feel fine.
So Cannonbolt's bounce isn't strong enough to break these trees, but later on will snap the ribcage of the Great One after feeding on the energy of the planet.
The trees are changing.
Ugh.
Come on, go hero!
You gotta press the button first. This is a good shape for Stinkfly's head to show that the Omnitrix icon isn't how he sees. When he's flying, his whole head lifts forward, and if you imagine the eye's not there, it kind of just makes, I want to say a beak shape? Oh, you see it much better from here. No, it's kind of like a horse. Anyway, I like it. And yeah, there's no gloves there, I see it. Old Faithful. For the international fans, that is a real place. So between this and Rushmore, we're getting a lot of real-life landscapes instead of just obscure towns. I'm liking this real-world integration. Also helps make the map easier.
Man.
Oh yeah, this is a good scene coming up. Kind of makes you want Ben to use his hoverboard more. But yeah, it is more practical for him to be an alien. But at least we get scenes like this spread throughout the series. I think there's at least one hoverboard scene per season in the classic series. Now, if you listen close, even though the animation is the same, this is where Forearm's voice starts really changing. They take out the growl that he had originally and added in one of Richard McGonagall's screams. So he's using every single alien right now against it. Oh, we get our second look at Ghost Freak's tentacles. These look different than they normally do too. When we first saw them, they had a lot of protruding tangents coming off of them, almost like a root, like they were splitting apart. Here they're more strategically placed, almost looking like a bone structure, like your spine. So they show every alien but gray matter. I feel like they could have spared another 2 seconds to show gray matter if they're willing to show this and think that's worth it.
Okay, I give. This thing's indestructible.
I was just pausing to say that it's a very good and smart effect to have the shadows fade as they stand, but then Gwen's just pops away.
Here goes nothing.
Awesome. From a narrative perspective, I like that they waited until Ben intentionally became Cannonbolt to start showing his transformation scene. I also feel like this is one of the weakest ones. All the others, it genuinely looked like Ben was morphing into the aliens, whereas here, he's just kind of expanding, and then he's instantly Cannonbolt. This is a very rare occurrence, where I actually feel like the Alien Force transformation sequence was better. But I was correct in that the first time we see Cannonbolt unfold was supposed to be the official way he does it, as it seems like it matches up with how he's unfolding right here. So comparatively, he just tucks his arms into himself as an outer shell sort of grows and extends around him, while sides of it become the circles. It's not either the shoulders or the arms that become the side bumper parts. Like, it sort of looks that way right here, but if you follow the shape of it as you go on, it still morphs into his back and becomes a solid shape, whereas the shoulders sort of carry over from here.
Gales will deflect their beams.
Whoa. See, sometimes Max actually has an old person's body, and sometimes he just does crazy shit like this. Bullshit. Yeah, even though here he had Gwen and Max inside of his casing, he still seems a lot smaller than he usually is later on. That was like a straight up video game move. This part looks pretty good. Yeah, what? Max? Doesn't work on the first try. Oh, God, this is brutal. Whoever said Ben doesn't kill is lying. We've definitely heard those Gwen screams before. Yeah, Ben murdered that thing.
The Great One has been silenced forever. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It looks like there'll be many days to come.
That they had to have done something. Things wouldn't just pop back to normal like that. That's too unbelievable, even by Ben 10's logic. I think that the Great One's followers put the planet back to normal somehow. Like this effect right here is their device activating. I don't know. That's how I'm gonna justify it. I refuse to believe this just happened. Okay, before I get to my review, I just read on the wiki that the hand positions Cannonbolt was doing when trying out his powers were the same from the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film. So I just wanted to show that off because I think that's cool.
Up and away, Webs! Shazam! Go! Go! Go, Web, go!
Okay, so plot will get a 2. It's very basic, and while I don't solely judge on complexity and uniqueness, it just kind of feels like after watching it, there's not much I can say about the episode, and I really don't like how things just went back to normal. We never find out how or why Cannonbolt got unlocked, and while there is strength in keeping things a mystery and leaving the ambiguity up to your imagination, this is something I feel like we should have gotten an answer for, and we never do. And while I do feel it's beneficial to have a very simple plot so that the conflict of of the episode doesn't outshine Cannonbolt's debut, it was a little discrediting to Ben's other aliens to make them all unable to defeat the Tick. I think the Tick should have had better defenses against Ben's aliens, rather than them just simply saying none of them are strong enough or as hard as Cannonbolt, because earlier we see Cannonbolt bouncing between trees and they still remain totally solid, yet he's strong enough to break the Great One's bones where Four Arms couldn't. I don't know, I'm not a big power scaler myself, and in many ways I do like that Ben actually did try all of his aliens and it really was only up to Cannonbolt to defeat the Tick. It just kind of made them all seem pathetic and sends the wrong message. And the fact that we don't know how Ben specifically got Cannonbolt, it's like this random powerful new alien drops out of nowhere right in the second episode of the second season of a show called Ben 10. Yeah, I'm being a little harsh on the episode. Like, I really like it. In fact, Cannonbolt's probably in my top 20, maybe even top 10 aliens. But I'm just trying to judge the plot of this episode with the same amount of emphasis I've done in my previous breakdowns, and that's where all of these flaws are really standing out strongly to me. Nonetheless, the characterization can have a 3. Everybody seemed in character, and the alien cult that helps the Great One were pretty interesting side characters. These are the kind of characters I feel like it's alright to just have them be simple in one note, because they're there for humor. They're not really there to be like a supporting character. But Gwen and Max kind of get left behind. Like, maybe Max could have tried ramming his RV into the Tick, like we've seen how durable it was. Even if it didn't work, I would have liked to see Max and Gwen try to have more use, and maybe get some glimpses on what other parts of the area look like and how people might be reacting to the whole Earth terraforming in like a day. Like, I guess what I'm saying is everything we saw wasn't bad characterization, but it leaves a lot more to be desired in the grand scheme of this episode. Visuals will get a 3. I feel like if you describe this episode to someone like, all of Ben's aliens can't defeat this Tick and it's changing the whole Earth and it's gonna blow it up, but Ben gets a brand new alien, it sounds really cool, right? But I can't lie, the visuals just weren't too impressive. The characters were going noticeably off model quite a few times. Even those without like an artistic eye, I feel like would notice some wonky animation here and there. The backgrounds actually do have a solid strength in this episode. There was a lot of thought and detail onto what the Earth looks like under the Tick's control, but it's brought down to a 3 strictly because of the process of animation. Although it did have some very good highlights, they're pretty outnumbered. Importance, I will give it a 5. I feel like the debut of Ben's first additional alien alone is just way too important to skip. And that's pretty much the only point I'm going to argue. Like, there's a whole lot of other supporting facts on why this episode's important, but yeah, Cannonbolt's debut pretty much sells the reason. It's a 5. And entertaining, it's gonna average out to another 3. It's got just enough to keep your attention, and it's interesting enough to want to come back to and rewatch for fun, but it does feel like it drags on in a few areas. That finishes this episode off to a 16 out of 25. I guess you could say these episodes so far are pretty average, but they are making strong efforts to give Ben 10 more life and be a lot cooler than last season. Alright, let's save this for the final thoughts and get that last episode out the way. Tom Pugsley gets his first season 2 episode in with Framed, first premiering May 31st, 2006. A series of crimes committed by aliens that resemble Ben's transformations attracts the attention of Lieutenant Steele of the Special Alien Containment Team that plans to hunt down any and all aliens. These crimes are committed by Kevin, who uses his new powers and likeness to frame Ben and ruin the reputation of alien heroes. With the power to change between aliens at will, Kevin poses a new, bigger threat to the Tennyson family.
2 hours and it hasn't budged an inch.
Small appreciation, but a rarity. A fair amount of these background characters move around. Usually they're frozen solid. Even this guy is moving. In the very first shot we see Kevin, there's no Omnitrix. So if you're quick enough, you can deduce right off the bat that this isn't Ben.
All this for a video game?
I don't believe it.
Good, you're right.
Lieutenant Steele, Special Alien Containment Team.
I do wish Steele was more involved in the series. He's got a very cool concept. He presents himself as if this is just a normal thing to do.
Special Alien Containment Team.
See, how could someone just walk up to like that so seriously? I'm really surprised no one's trying to call bullshit on this. Perhaps this is hints that the Earth is taking a response to the things that are so obviously unavoidable that has happened in the show so far. The Mount Rushmore incident, the recent Tick incident. Bill was definitely open with the fact that aliens existed when he was scamming people. So yeah, you know, I guess it is pretty justifiable that people would expect this to be legitimate.
Concussion bazooka!
That's a really good design. It definitely feels very man-made compared to the alien tech we see in the show. Like, if this was real, I would believe that it can actually shoot a laser beam, if it looked like this complicated and big. Oh, we got some inverted colors on the dial here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, sure. You never do anything wrong, do you?
Sounds about right.
You know, if Ben always responds to her just like that, I don't blame her for getting so riled up at him.
No one's gonna ruin my alien's reputation.
Criminals always return to the scene of the crime.
Will you give it a rest?
Yeah, I actually agree with Ben here now. Between this and her constant antagonization of Max in the first episode we reviewed in this video, they're really upping the ante with Gwen just being the opposite of whatever the character we're focusing on is doing or saying. And she's constantly being written to be against the person in question, just to make that character seem even more justifiable. And it's just making Gwen come across as rude and insensitive. And there's many moments in her character that prove otherwise. So the times that they just use her as a writing tool to be antagonistic just for the necessary dialogue of the scene, it really diminishes her character. Well, like, I guess I wouldn't have too much of a problem with it if that was really what her character was, but sometimes she's just randomly insensitive.
Who said retirement was relaxing?
And that too. I mean, just last episode. You see what I mean? No Omnitrix. Who could it be?
Back off the fireworks before somebody gets really hurt. Gwen! Not now, dweeb! Ben?
Ooh, that was quick. Yeah, he almost didn't make that.
Hey! It's raining money!
Kevin's voice fits so well in Heat Blast's body. I'm glad that they let him voice all of his aliens.
You still haven't figured it out?
And this is a great touch. Just by this quick scene, you can tell like Kevin still doesn't have full control over these abilities, and it really takes some hard concentration to get through all these forms. And very similar to Secrets, the in-betweens, there's a lot of effort put into it. These are some solid morphs. This last shot with Kevin as a Cyclops, and it holds just long enough for you to see it, but then his eyes split as he raises his head. Hair gets cut off at a very strange spot, but you know, you'd never notice that when watching this. You would just be like, damn, that was cool.
I could turn into any of those aliens. Only problem is, I can only stay human for a short time.
It's literally the exact opposite of Ben. That's a very deliberate antagonistic power, and I think it's very clever to put up against Ben. Sucks it only lasts this episode, though.
You made me into this freak.
Like this is my fault?
As if. Diamond Head has eyelids, so when he turns into Stinkfly, it's like his head morphs first. You can see it's already Stinkfly before Heat Blast's body catches up.
Sorry, Rockhead. I'm the good alien.
Yeah, sure you are. Just like those alien heroes all over the news nowadays.
If he knows they're real, and Diamond Head's clearly not threatening or attacking them, I don't get why he doesn't believe him. He seems like a smart man. Ooh, nice. And excellent aim too. And it's even more believable because we've actually seen Ben practice doing this exact thing as Diamond Head. So those little scenes pay off. Oh, now this takes way too long.
Don't hurt me! Oh, is that monster gone?
Keep an eye on them. They know more than they're saying.
Okay, so if he's smart enough to see through their lies, then like, yeah, he really should have just believed Ben.
It was Kevin at both the video game store and the Mint.
Check this out.
Alright, yeah, this is an error, but other than that, Kevin can clearly control what his alien transformations are, and since Ripjaws still needs water to survive, I don't know what his motivation for being Ripjaws to rob a bank would be. Like, maybe he just quickly turned into him just to freak this guy out.
Boy must have gone upgrade to hijack that cable car.
I can upgrade better.
Wild mutt?
My work's done.
I'd like to know how much of this is boarded or just given to the animators to do as they please with. It seems like there's a very specific way each alien comes into being. Like Stinkfly's eyes always pierce out of the head. There's surprisingly a lot of unity in all of these different transformations, and it's very specific. It almost makes me wish Ben transformed that way, but it is a lot more convenient and kind of cooler to have the flashes.
Attach the line to the bottom of the RV.
Yeah, Max is helping out. And there we see the rockets again. This is what I'm talking about, where imagine if Vilgax never showed up and Max never revealed his secret to the kids. Would he purposefully not do this in that scenario and just let all these people die? Because they would have died. It really feels like Max only kept it a secret for the audience's sake. I wish there was a little bit more justification for Max keeping this a secret from the kids, aside from just the storytelling for the audience. Not having the dial is one thing, but he doesn't have the entire black overlap on his suit, as if his DNA was smart enough to know that it doesn't need that if he doesn't have the Omnitrix.
Lieutenant Steele!
Oh man. Kevin's kicking the crap out of him. Now this is pretty striking because you don't really get to see Ben's aliens go up against each other. Yeah, Ben's definitely had some practice with forearms by now. Forearms really is the proficient choice to go up against all of his aliens. He's strong enough to go against Diamond Head, he's fireproof against Heat Blast, and Kevin's transformation happening here again, like from Heat Blast to Sync Fly, it happens the same way. So I wonder if his morphs are like a predetermined thing that the crew working on the show at the time had to lay out and like create boards and descriptions for. Just so much symmetry with all of them. Unless it's also literally just one guy doing it all. They're like, if Ben's morphing, this one specific animator has to do it, and that one guy just knows what to make it look like. Yes, Kevin had an unknown finite amount of transformations, because right here he seems to just run out of juice out of nowhere, and all he wanted to do was be turned back to normal, so this should be a blessing in his own motivations. And smack.
Get back here and fight, Tennyson!
You're not worth it.
I'm pretty sure this is everyone's favorite part of the episode. And I'm glad they really took their time with it and made it dramatic, since it is a permanent thing for him. They spend a good amount of focus on all parts of his body to show off that everybody's included. And it looks like parts of his flesh just get morphed off.
I can't change back! Fire!
Looking for me.
Stand down.
Since the road trips really makes it hard for the classic series to have a supporting cast, I think it would have been neat to develop this a little further. Like this scene right here, Lieutenant Steele figures out that all the aliens are actually Ben, but he doesn't tell any of his men, only he knows. And then every now and then Steele and Ben can meet up, perhaps they're in contact with each other. It just feels like a lot is getting built up here that doesn't have any payoff. Like these characters were created with the intentions that they're free to come back at any time, but no writer ever decided to take advantage of that. I mean, you got a dream scenario and then a reappearance in Omniverse, but by then so much has happened that whatever relationship was budding in this scene here is just totally irrelevant.
Not even Kevin could have survived that blast and that fall, right?
I thought he was gone for good the last time.
Do they want him dead? Like, they really be trying to kill everybody in this season. Max should have held on to the null void projector, and that could have been a recurring item in this season, to collect all of the aliens or prisoners they don't know what to deal with.
Maybe we'll cross paths again sometime.
Maybe they won't. Alright, so that was definitely the most exciting episode out of the bunch. The plot, like many other categories in this review, is going to average out to a 3. There's not any plot holes or big flaws with the storytelling. I liked the idea of it starting off with the fact that Kevin was framing Ben, but I wish Kevin had a little bit more motivation other than directly trying to get back at Ben for all the things that he's been doing. Like every time he robs a place, where does he put the money? Or where's he been staying? What's he been eating? I would have liked to see a little bit more about Kevin's side of things. Here he strictly plays the villain role, and that's fine. But it kind of takes away from him feeling more like a character, like how he was in the first episode. We really got to see his side of things and sympathize with him. Either the trio or Sacked themselves should have checked the waters for Kevin's body. That just seemed like an irresponsible move that neither party decided to do. And aside from showing up and talking about all the things that they do, all the scenes with Lieutenant Steele and Sacked just kind of felt a little bit filler-ish. They show up, Ben pretends he doesn't know what happened, then they leave and regroup later to do the same thing. Like I said, I felt like maybe it was supposed to build up to some stronger relationship between them and Steele later on, but because there's no strong payoff in this episode or going forward, it just feels weird to spend a lot of time developing the lore of Sacked and the character of Steele, when the only thing that actually made a difference was the concussive bazooka shooting Kevin off of the bridge, which didn't even work. That bleeds into my characterization rating also being a 3. Just for a lot of the same reasons I just described, I don't really want to repeat myself too much. Kevin just didn't really seem like a real character in this episode. Steele was very unreasonably arrogant, and there was nothing really to back up why this character is this way. And for the first half of the episode, Gwen was just doing whatever she could to be against the idea that maybe Ben isn't the one committing these crimes. With Ben's irresponsibility of his powers, I guess it makes sense for Gwen to be a little suspicious, but for her to downright refuse to believe that Ben's telling the truth, I don't think that really fits for Gwen. But now my rankings start to take a more positive take when I get to the visuals, which deserves a 5. All of the transformations obviously had a great amount of effort put into them, and with the benefit of Kevin's abilities, we got to see a lot more aliens than we normally do in this episode. And the reveal of Kevin's final mutated form will probably be the most memorable moment of this season. Importance, like all episodes in this season, is getting a 5. It seems like season 2 really wanted to start building the world of Ben 10 by giving a lot of strong, permanent lore and reoccurring characters and facts, and this episode is no exception. There's a lot of great things about this episode, especially with Kevin, but here the concepts outweigh the execution just ever so slightly. Seeing Ben take on his alien forms is cool, but I feel like that should have gotten a lot more attention than any other parts of this episode. The really memorable parts of the episode overshadow some of the in-betweens. Like, they spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out who's behind all of the framed alien incidents, and all of the Lieutenant Steele scenes are kind of rinse and repeat until the end. But hey, when this episode's brought up, you don't think about that. You just think about the Kevin stuff. So we're gonna land at 20 out of 25 for this episode's final ranking. I did expect this episode to be a point or two higher, but a 20 out of 25 really isn't bad. I'd say that's a very fair ranking. 3 new locations means it's time to update our roadmap. Truth takes place directly after the previous episode. Secrets. And they even revisit the same Plumber HQ location hidden in Mount Rushmore. So while we do have a real location in this episode, it's still the same as the one from before, and the marker doesn't move. The big tick makes it obvious it takes place in Yellowstone National Park, located in Wyoming. Framed makes this easy for us as well, with very obvious San Francisco locations shown, including Gwen's line.
Who of Ben's aliens terrorizing San Francisco?
We even get specific San Fran locations name dropped, such as
Both are heading down California Street.
and the Golden Gate Bridge, which is where Kevin and Ben have their final battle. That leaves our season 2 map with these 2 new markers, so nothing left to do but our final thoughts. So I went into a lot of detail throughout this video, so for this final thought section, I'm going to keep it brief. All the new lore stuff was great. That's what I'm here for, and as a fan of the universe, all of these new facts are very satisfying. But beyond that, in the context of the series so far, we have a whole other season to compare this to. But while last season was more episodic, I feel those stories were told a little bit better and more concrete. And the more I think about these episodes, the more they start to fall apart. If Phil is too far away in the null void to make an appearance and back with the vengeance, how is Phil able to access the very same aliens Max and him caught years ago, and a lot of them, mind you, with such ease? If it only takes one cannon bolt to take down the big tick, how did it destroy an entire planet of them last week? I know classic Arburian Pelorotas are more peaceful and non-violent, but are you telling me not a single one of them tried to fight back? The entire planet just collectively decided to let themselves die? I mean, every episode has flaws when you dig this deep. But the point I want to make is Season 1's episodes were upfront about their storytelling and characters, while Season 2 so far seems more interested in just giving us lore and having stories told around that. I'm just saying, it seems like the stories are taking a back seat in terms of prioritization. But hey, I still love these episodes, I'd still give them a rewatch every now and then, and they're good enough to get me hyped for the rest of the season. Next week I'll be doing an entire video dedicated to Gwen 10. Since it's basically a retelling of the major Vilgax plot points in the first season, there's a lot that I'm gonna want to point out. So if you're excited for that, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. But for now, you can stay up to date with everything we do on our social medias and join the Discord for some fun community interaction, and join the Patreon for only $1 a month for some exclusive updates on all of our projects, including 5 years later and beyond. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and as always, keep it fizzy.